popping back up live on. There we go. It's live on everything. Now I see this whole thing array of like sending data on a bunch of different channels because this is how I prefer it, Joe. Well, I could put all my eggs in one basket and be on YouTube or just on Facebook or just on TikTok or some nonsense. I'm not on TikTok because it's malware and it's run by Larry
Yeah.
Ellison, but that's neither here nor there. But or Rumble or some nonsense. But I don't trust any of them because there at one point at any time they could just turn it off. It could go away. It could crash or whatever. Better to have multiple outlets. So that's we're up on streaming on that. Sorry guys. Welcome back. Join in. The chat room is gathering. We got about a grand and a half of people jumping straight back in. And what we were talking about essentially was this crux point where you view yourself as Tea Party. Now I want to say that the idea of free speech, what would effectively be free markets in terms of if I have a skill and a product, I should be able to sell that at a standard and my own labor at whatever price I can get for it because I have the ability, I have sovereignty over my own labor and my own creativity and my own development of, my property, ideas, capabilities, whatever. The only, difference is that a regulated market is necessary in that so that I don't get stomped on before I even get out of the crib, right?
Amen.
Which is really what like market economy stuff is about, right? So that there's true freedom in that because otherwise nobody gets off the ground, right? Everybody is behind everybody else because only the robber barons who got a leap ahead of us would have had any of the capital necessary to do this. And I have argued to my dear hashtag communist friends and the like, is that if all labor is exploitation and capital is the exploitation of that labor, then every time you pay your Uber Eats driver or go up to the counter at McDonald's or something, then you are a capitalist exploiting the labor of the person behind the counter because you are bringing your capital and you are trading it for their labor at an exchange point that is uneven. You're not paying the fair wages of everybody there. That's spread out over every customer that day. So you as the customer get to take advantage of the benefits of spreading that labor out over a good portion of people. So this is like, it's always a silly argument to me. My argument is that a mixed economy is what will work. Any version of it where it's extreme, total free market, total communism will collapse under its own weight. It can't.
And brother, you and I are joined at the hip there. I'm libertarian by nature. I would never argue for no government and or no government regulation. They go hand in hand completely. The point I was making was that's not at all
what's happening now.
This Republican Party is like authoritarian.
I would argue the same thing is true of libertarianism because at one point libertarianism was kind of like the old joke about independents are really Republicans who smoke pot. Libertarians became the namesake of that idea. Effectively, not fiscal conservatives, not socially conservative mixture. Right? That was the idea. Libertarians have just become basically the sovereign citizens who haven't worked up the guts to tell a cop to go fuck himself yet, and that's the sad part of that state. Right, because the crust thinks it's the pizza right now.
Yeah. And the other point I'll make is on this. Look, I became a Democrat exactly a year ago. Not because I'm a Democrat when it comes to policy. I just believe my former party is an existential threat to democracy and the rule of law. Like I really believe that. And so as long as I can breathe, I want to help the Democrats defeat what that is. But I'm politically, I'm like still independent and kind of homeless right now.
Understood. Okay, so I think I can talk you into being okay with being a Democrat in the same way that I will annoy people who are on, or communist/socialists into thinking they aren't. In that the roots of these parties, Democrats or Republicans, what is the fundamental core of these ideas beyond free markets and conservatism is an idea and something like that, or social programs and whatever. Democrats are based on the idea of one man, one vote, that the value of citizenry is that you are a participant. So at the root of it, hence the name, Democrats are one person, one vote. Citizens get to vote, and we all get a say, whether we like it or not. What that's metastasized into is another conversation. Same thing with republicanism. That ultimately, republicanism is the party of, in its essence, the electoral college, not the idea of everybody deserves to vote. As a matter of fact, if you look at Paul Weyrich's statement about the goo-goo syndrome shit that he said when at the, that he doesn't want everybody to vote, the leverage of conservatives goes down, the more people vote. The essence of republicanism is the government wants, if the governor of your state wants to override the voters, they should have the right to do that as the primary land owner and dealer with the people who own and control land in the state. And so that's where they started. That's all right. There's where they've gone. We'll talk.
Completely
Yeah.
agree. And by the way,
Right.
again, you and I are joined at the hip. I mean, I'm a
Mhm.
rare conservative dude who's
Mhm.
utterly opposed to the Electoral College.
Yeah.
Right, along the lines of what you just said. I think here's the problem.
Sure.
Because Trump has been fucking burning our house down now for years,
Yes.
we're all aligned to put out that fire. But I think we're on the cusp of like major political reform because our political system is broken and it fucking sucks, and we need more than two parties, and on and on and on.
Sure. Okay. So I would argue that currently in the Democratic Party, both the plus and the negative of it is that you can have a conversation from legit conservative to legit liberal entirely under the envelope of the Democratic Party. Whether people like it or not is one thing. We have pro-life and pro-choice Democrats. We have fiscally conservative Democrats, and we have like super just kind of like whatever Trump says about open borders, pay for everyone, or that idea, whether that's true or not, because again, Bernie's an independent, but whatever. Under the people who caucus, you can have the whole conversation, a legit conversation. I don't mean the nutty fringes, but a legit conversation about,
hold
right.
on, though, boss. You can
Yeah.
have. Yeah, I agree with you. Under the Democratic Party umbrella, you can have that conversation. Like, I believe the Democratic Party should be big enough for a Joe Walsh and a Zoran Mamdani.
Right. Yep.
But you couldn't be a pro-life Democrat and ever get the nomination for president these days. There are certain
That's true, but you currently you can't be a woman or single and do that either in either party. So right, agreed, right? Like I think when you start talking about masses of people and you start getting to the prevailing bigotry of crowds, you're always going to run aground on anything that isn't tried and true. Halfway because of the bigotry of people, genuine bigotry. And then the other people who are like, I'm not sure about that. I'll just go safe. Right. So that mix alone is probably why most people think our system is broken, because there is a fusion. Ironically, in this split, I think politically, I'd love to hear your take on this, that if you look at like the amount of overlap right now in ideas between Nick Fuentes and AOC in terms of like home affordability and schools and jobs and interest rates, it's bizarre. These people would never meet on anything else, but there's this weird crux, and a lot of it has to do with this kind of like rebel incorporated distrust of government and the man and establishment as just kind of this rubber stamp excuse for everything. Like it's normal to hate your boss, even if you like your boss. If you say you like your boss, everybody's like, what an asshole. You serve the man. You're like, no, he's actually a decent, my boss is a decent human being. She's a great boss. She runs the company well, cares about the rest of us, is trying to keep us all afloat, worries about it at night, that kind of stuff. That matters to her, right? So, but if you say that, people are like, oh yeah, okay, so, all right, you just want to be a corporate shit, right? That kind of thing. So there's this weird overlap in the middle of independence, which is where I feel like they think they're in an island, which is there are no partisan issues, only partisan solutions. And in some cases, there aren't even partisan solutions. Gravity is gravity. You can only solve something one way, at least with the tools that you have in front of you. Right.
I think,
so. Yeah,
no, you're onto something, my friend. Like, I was on CNN last week and I said, don't laugh at the idea that Tucker Carlson could easily be the 28 Republican Party nominee.
Sorry, I didn't mean to, but I did. Right, go ahead.
But go ahead and laugh. Yeah. Go ahead and laugh.
Yeah,
but like, I think it's real based on what I hear and what I know about my former party. And I
Right.
think if Tucker Carlson were ever the Republican Party nominee, I think he'd get a shitload of support from major elements of the far left because there is an overlap on certain motivating issues right now
It seems to
that
be what
kind
he's
of align.
attempting to do. I mean, he's bringing
Yeah,
on Anna Kasparian and Jimmy Dore and all the progressives, the people who are, the millionaire Marxists who have,
yeah,
$2.5 million houses in the Hollywood Hills and tell everybody to go on a general strike from the warm side of a bay window when they would never shut their show down for an afternoon because of the ad rev they would lose. And
yeah.
that's another car they could buy that day. So, yeah, don't get me fucking started on that
Well,
crowd.
Tucker,
But
where were Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens last week? In Russia.
right, oh, totally.
Crazy Russia.
Oh yeah, yeah. The new Jill Stein and Mike Flynn. Yeah, I mean, right?
Well said. Well
Yeah,
said.
and in the case of like Anna Kasparian, Jimmy Dore, and all these kind of stuff, a lot of the stuff there, they talk about a good game to the working class, but telling those people to take the heat. You guys
Yeah,
walk off the job. You guys
yeah.
do a general strike. We'll keep doing shows. You'll be at home when you're not at work. In
Bingo.
theory, getting fired, especially in right to work states. Holy shit! Like the shed that would be coming, the contracts that some
Yeah.
companies would be able to just hot quit because all their workers walked off the job at the same time. It would be a godsend for them in some cases. And they don't like those assholes don't care about that. They're just
Yeah,
kind of like, oh,
this is why I always love having conversations
fuck,
with you.
man.
Like I've publicly said now for a number of years, my former party ain't going to change. It is a MAGA party, a
Hmm.
Trumpism party, and it's going to stay that way for my lifetime. So there are a lot of people who will not go back to that. And depending on what the Democratic Party does, what direction they go, I think you're going to see an increasingly number of Americans who don't have a home in either party,
Right.
and they got to go somewhere.
Hmm. Well, and I think a lot of them are going to end up being this like no name, but voting the way they did before, so they can
Yeah,
pretend. We ran into this after George W. Bush in the Iraq War and how unpopular that was, and yellow cake and all that nonsense. That ultimately you had a shit ton of what would effectively become a seat of the Tea Party, I would argue, which were
yeah,
former Republicans who called themselves independents because they were ashamed of their George W. Bush vote, and yet they
yeah,
would still ultimately vote for the Republican in most of these races, McCain, Romney, and then ultimately Trump in some of these cases. Now, there was certainly some crossover into Obama because of the sensibility of his runs and the kind of normalization that he was kind of going, look, I understand I got to be president for the whole country. And there's a bunch of people, especially in the primary field area, that aren't going to like that. It's their job not to like it. It's their industry not to like it. The people who move to Iowa because they know every 4 years, or every years and change, they're going to have to start ginning up the machine again. So they literally bought a fake farm in Iowa and now live there, like have an apartment in DC or New York, but most of their actual home is in Iowa because they're part of the machine. And so that, they're part of the machine
yeah.
that goes, oh, the establishment, like, asshole, you are the establishment. You're the PR and primary arm of a political wing that's driving part of the conversation on a cyclical level.
Bingo.
That is an established thing. And look, I'm not anti-establishment in that regard because I think everybody establishes something. You establish a life. You have to get a driver's license. That's the establishment of your actual function as a driver that's safe among other drivers. When you raise children, lose weight, gain weight, work out, everything is
Yeah,
incremental and you establish something you can stand on, a foundation. There's nothing shameful about that until what you're talking about is sort of monopolistic
yeah.
or control for control's sake, in
And
my
just
estimation.
and just politically, all of
Yeah.
us who have left the Republican Party, and for the last number of cycles, we've been voting Democrat and
Hmm.
helping Democrats win because again, that thing is burning down my house, the Republican Party.
Yeah.
That's going to change a little post-Trump. Like
Hmm.
the Republican Party will
Agreed.
still be the MAGA nationalistic threat, but all of us now are going to begin maybe looking our votes elsewhere and not
Sure.
automatically giving it to the Democrats. And I think that's going to create an interesting dynamic. I don't
So
know what it
it's a good,
is.
really, you hit on something really great there, and I think that is the big question on people's minds because as we were discussing before we went on the air, our buddy Doc Adam, who comes on the show, who's a a geriatric specialist, effectively has been pointing to the fact that Trump is in a hard spiral. He's on a his brain is fritzing out, as everybody saw with the Kristen Welker burnout this weekend. Just a panic attack. The whole, all of his
Yeah.
systems don't work. I've always said never underestimate Donald Trump's ability to fuck up a free lunch. That with every possible lever of power in the world, he still fucks up in an obvious and weak way. But in this situation, is once he's gone. Everybody's gone. I remember everybody going, "Oh my God, he's gone." But then we have to deal with JD Vance. I'm like, okay, a lame duck JD Vance, Mr. Riz, is nothing to worry about because the idea that he's going to marshal MAGA the way Trump has is absurd, especially with his Peter Thiel, PayPal mafia, Elon Musk ties that a big chunk of MAGA hates. They're suspicious. Never mind the racist ones who are like, he's got an Indian wife and he's probably a secret Hindu and blah, 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 all that nonsense. So what, to your point, after the Trump period, the current unpleasantness, as the CIA would put it, is behind us, the new guard of Republicans may rise up. I would say Thune, because he's the tallest guy in the room, and somehow those guys always get promoted. Not that I'm pissed about that, but at 5'9", I think I'm the perfect height for action. Anyways, but I mean, it definitely appeals to the power structure of those kind of folks. But how do they negotiate that with the maggots that will be left over, that will be your primary problem, in the same way that, say, Bernie bros have dogged the left and the Democrats in areas where,
As a former MAGA gangbanger, let me give you my take and you respond to it.
Sure.
This is the party of MAGA and Trump and Trumpism. If Trump died in his sleep tomorrow, that won't change. If Trump died in his sleep tomorrow and JD Vance became president, then JD Vance will be the nominee in 28. If Trump's still alive and there's a fight to be the nominee in 28, JD's going to have a real handful, because everybody in MAGA world now is trying to assume their spot because they want to be the guy, the gal. But as long as Trump's alive, he will be the kingmaker. Sure. He will appoint who the next nominee is. I don't think that changes. And if you're not Trumpy, big time Trumpy, you ain't the Republican Party nominee in 28. I would think that continues for a long time. John Thune, Nikki Haley, hell, if Mitt Romney came back, none of these people have any prayer anymore in that party. None.
I agree. I agree on that base chunk. That's what I'm talking about like that the extremist base dogging that part of it, because the independents, the people you're talking to, which is a big chunk of people, big chunk of human beings who would immediately go to, what would effectively be called center right, or even derogatorily center left by the TYT crowd, which they would view as basically Republican at this point because, whatever, they've moved on from pot and gay marriage or something. That there is a huge chunk of these independents who would go, we need to fall in behind a Thune or a Romney and rebuild our party and kick these maggots to the curb. And the maggots aren't going to want to show up like they did in numbers. They're not going to be rallying like they did. They're going to fade back into the woodwork like part of the Tea Party rescinded, maybe.
Yeah. But I do think, because when I first turned against Trump publicly 8 years ago, MAGA was a growing fringe part of the party. It's now the mainstream of the Republican Party. It is the base. If you want to win a Republican primary today or in 28, you have to be MAGA to win a primary. There's no doubt if Nikki Haley or John Thune were the Republican Party nominee in 28, they could win a general. But to win a Republican Party primary, you got to be Trump or Trumpy. You got to be down on your knees proselytizing yourself in front of him. And that ain't
Right.
going to change for the near term.
I completely agree in terms of the primary aspect of it
Yeah.
as it's built currently. But there's a very Jonestown aspect of Trump's followers that is very different than any other Republican leader we've ever seen before. That a lot of these,
Completely.
like the QAnon chunks, let's talk 7 to 12% of hardcore MAGA, let's say, or a third of the 36% of the base that Trump is pushing in the electorate right now is came on board and pushed the party into this MAGA zone through this QAnon. There's a cabal of baby eating pedophiles who walk around with a toddler with a straw in its spine, just and they're going to live forever and blah blah blah. That crowd, they're not going to. They don't drift in cults anyways. They don't drift from the leader to the next leader easily. It's usually ugly and violent, or they just scatter. Think the Manson family, think Waco and the Branch Davidians afterwards. There's a lot of Branch Davidians in that area in Waco, and they all just poofed off to wherever. Whatever the FDL, whatever the Latter-day Saints, FLDR, whatever I don't know what their radio station is, but I don't tune into it anyways. But the QAnon crowd that came on board, that was Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, is the example of those people, have fucked off, and I don't see them. I think they could. They're not going to vote for Democrats like you're talking to bring down and reshape the Republican Party. But they are very possibly going to, whether they're out about it, vote for the more normalized Republican, because they're not going to vote Democrat, but they might vote the normalized Republican or the independent that's obviously a Republican in their area. And if she's a representative of a group of people, they're either going to disappear or do that. Like, I don't see a plot where they go, oh, thank God, JD Vance is here to carry on the torch. You know what I mean? Like,
no, you're right. You're right. And you make a really important point again. There's a percentage of MAGA that was never Republican and isn't Republican.
Right.
That's true. But the Republican Party base generally right now, and because I come from the base,
Right.
I still engage with hundreds of these people every day. Their mindset is, there are too many brown and black people in this country.
Right.
I want to build a wall around America and keep the world out. And I want to keep us out of the rest of the world. There's a certain mentality driving the base that any JD Vance or Marco Rubio or Tucker Carlson, anybody, John Jr., can tap into. That's still what drives the base. And I don't see that changing for a while.
Gotcha. Okay. So all right. I don't think Rubio can do it because he's Cuban. Like, anybody brown. Right. Anybody brown can't even pretend to do it because they'll think they're a Trojan horse, even if they believe they're as racist as Vivek Ramaswamy is. They'll still think he's just, sneaking in there, pretending to be, just because they came across the Caucasus Mountains and Indians are technically Caucasian doesn't make me feel any better. Right. It's the way.
No, and you're right. Look, you're right about Rubio. I find Rubio despicable. All of my former colleagues sold their souls, like Vance and Rubio. The difference is, I think Vance really internalized and believes a lot of this immigrant racist shit. Marco Rubio is not that. In his core, Marco Rubio is Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, and Mitt Romney. So he has to pretend to hang on to that base.
Right. I know they have to at least give lip service to make it float. The problem is, and we're running into this with the Charlie Kirk thing. So I'm sure you have watched that play out, and I've made the argument that Trump's cascading numbers started drastically. Sorry, I mean there was some rumblings about it in the beginning of last year, but right when that memo came out from Pam Bondi, the unsigned Epstein memo, where they were like, nothing to see here, it's all over, there's no co-conspirators, and he killed himself, and shut the fuck up and bye. And they were like, by Monday, the day after that, which by the way, they hid after those kids were drowned in Texas, they used that as cover to release this shit. The Monday is when he told a big chunk of MAGA, including, and there were reactions from Fuentes and others. Specifically that weekend, Alex Jones even had his first kind of like, did he say what I thought he said? Where Trump was like, if you don't like that memo, then you're not MAGA. Don't talk to me about Epstein. If you care about Epstein, then you're not MAGA and you're not loyal to me or whatever. And there was a moment where like something snapped, that there was a difference that we had not seen previous to that. And it entered this kind of like, you could tell they were still turd polishing. They were still tap dancing around. Well, maybe he didn't mean it. And he gets a little crazy. And maybe this is just our catch of being a mean tweet and it's over. And then between that, Iran, and then Charlie Kirk gets killed. And there's this weird thing where their own paranoia, the QAnon paranoia, can't shut off like a light switch. And when it looks like they caught the guy, looks like it's basically central casting, as Trump likes to say, that it was a leftist, furry trans lover who hated Charlie Kirk's message and wanted him dead. And they still couldn't buy it, even though it seemed like maybe it was too served up to them on a silver platter. That's their mentality. Ever since then, I'm sure you've seen it. That's where that's almost exactly what drove Candace Owens to Russia, besides the money. Right?
Yeah. No, I think I'm asked all the time if any of this shit is moving his base. And you're right in that the two biggest movements of his base have been with the Epstein files cover up and the war.
Right.
Those two issues, more than any other issues, have caused his base people, Republican Party base voters, to tell me, like, what the fuck's going on, Joe? This isn't right.
Yeah.
With Epstein, they were promised the mother lode of all deep
all
state
of
scandals.
It. Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
And the one thing, again, another animating part of the Republican Party base is, man, stay out of the rest of the world. You said no wars. You said no war. Those two, and privately, they have a hard time admitting this, but the way that Trump has single-handedly fucked up the economy, many of them privately will tell me they're disappointed.
Yeah. Well, okay. So it was never going to be one big thing that caused the sever, because they were too committed to that. And their own identity is too attached to him, I think. The idea, that what probably took Marjorie Taylor Greene so long to wake up to the fact that he was clearly, look, Jeffrey Epstein's wingman for 27 years is not going to be the dude that dumps the files completely and insists on a raid of Zorro Ranch. And don't get me started on Epstein still being alive, and $1 billion is way more money than you would need to pay to the Russians to sneak you out of a supermax prison, and they could totally do it. It's my favorite. I like, I think you're allowed one conspiracy theory you can play with. I don't necessarily buy into it necessarily, but if I was going to flick one around and talk about it, that would be the one, that he's still around. But even then, Trump was president when he escaped or died, whatever you want to say, whether he was murdered, killed himself, or escaped. Trump was president. Trump got him arrested. The raid by the FBI under Trump was, they came in, looked at some stuff, took some pictures, and said, "Oh, we can't remove evidence." And they had to come back the next day, and some of it was gone. Lutnick is his next door neighbor. Hey, Alex Acosta.
I've had his supporters on the phone with me this last year, in tears. Oh. I mean, hardcore MAGA dudes who basically in tears said to me, "Joe, what the fuck? We were told this Epstein thing was going to reveal all, and now he's telling us there's nothing to see there." I feel bad for them because they're disillusioned. I don't think people, you do, but people don't understand what a big deal that was when Trump said, "Fuck it, nothing to see here, let's move on."
Right. And it was, again, it's one thing when he thinks it's just like everything else. He's so transactional. He doesn't understand that anybody else, is why I can't deal with the Ayatollahs and the IRGC, because he doesn't understand people who actually believe what they say. He doesn't get it. He thinks everything is negotiable for cash. Whoever can buy out the other person, and then you just move on to the next deal. If I can't bully you and get what I want out of this deal, I'll just move on to the next thing. Fuck it. That's why he's got 1,500 LLCs. It's why he's got a bunch of dead projects all over the fucking country. The Chicago Tower. He's He's like the fifth holder in it, and it's a branding deal. He pays
Yeah.
$100,000
Yeah.
a month more in interest on his investment in that building than it's worth because he thought he was going to be able to bully the Fed into negative interest rates during his first term.
Yeah.
And when he
Yeah.
wasn't,
Yeah.
he didn't renegotiate because he's a fucking moron. And that's, like I said, it's not
Yeah.
going to be one thing, but
But
it's this. You go ahead.
you made a really important distinction. Like when I came out publicly 8 years ago against Trump, I came out against what MAGA was. You mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor came out against Trump. Marjorie, though, is still full on MAGA.
Yeah.
And so like she's trying to position herself in the new MAGA world, like they all are. Megyn Kelly, they're all trying to position themselves. They're still full on MAGA. They're arguing about what that is.
I believe that is, if you're familiar with the movie The Dark Crystal. Did you ever see The Dark Crystal, the Jim Henson puppet movie? With
No,
the
no, no.
Okay, all right. Anyways, there are these good beings. It's a fantasy kind of thing with
Yeah,
elves and whatever. But there are these good beings and the evil beings. The evil ones look like vultures, and the good ones look like erasers. They're very
yeah,
strange. They're like kind of bulbous, whatever. When they're tied together forever, like yin and yang, and when one dies, when an evil one dies, a good one dies in parallel. So the leader of the evil ones is in his bed. You know, the mystics, the nice ones, are like monks. They're covered in kind of Buddhist looking drawings, and when they die peacefully, like they're made of oats and full of vitamin C. But when the Skeksis, the bad guy, dies, he's in a gold bed, that looks like the bed from Pirates of the Caribbean and the ride with the skull over top of it and all this
yeah.
stuff. But the point is the other ones, the ones who want to be the next ruler, who have to get his scepter from him, are all gathered around the bed,
Bingo,
trying to position themselves
bingo,
for who's going to, as soon as he dies, who lurches for the scepter and then gets to be the king.
bingo,
That's what it feels like right now. It
bingo.
feels like they're all like the sharks are fucking circling to be the top hammerhead in this school. And
You're right. That's perfect. And I'm going to watch that. Thank you for that. I'm going to watch. You're exactly right. Again, assuming Trump's alive in the fight for the 28 nomination, all of these bad ones fighting to be his heir, they all need his blessing. You cannot be the Republican Party nominee if you don't have his blessing. If he
right.
dies in his sleep tonight, then it's a whole nother world.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's like he has not even given J.D. Vance his blessing. He's talked about the ticket between him and Marco, but not the order of that ticket, which also just speaks to his disdain for J.D. Vance. And he has kind of a sort of Reagan towards George H.W. Bush, where they were placed together by the RNC. It was not a pairing like, hey, you and me, buddy. It was like, obviously, this kind of contrived thing after H.W. Bush had been fired by Jimmy Carter from the CIA. Don't get me started. But the point being is that J.D. Vance and Trump are not fellow travelers in the truest sense. Like, insofar as I know, and you probably are closer to this than I am.
You're right.
But Don Jr. basically wanted the crypto backing of Peter Thiel and said, this is our way of doing it. Whether we win or lose doesn't really matter. If Dad loses again, we'll still have gotten in good with it. Better if we win. But
hey, my friend, you nailed it. Don Jr. and Charlie Kirk put Vance on Trump with Thiel and Elon and other money people behind him, but it was driven by Don Jr. and Charlie Kirk. Completely agree with that. And again, the other good point you made is like Trump's a cult leader.
Yeah,
it's hard to replace the original cult leader.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so Trump talks, sometimes he'll have Franklin Graham on. And this goes back to our sort of beginning of our Christian nationalist conversation. He'll have Franklin Graham on. And if you listen to how he regards Franklin Graham, he talks about him as the best salesman in the world. And Christians everywhere should be horrified of that description. Because let me tell you something. When you got a great product that you can believe in and that's good for the customer, you don't have to be the greatest salesman in the world. The product sells itself. But if you're a used car salesman and a bullshit artist and you're selling fake dreams and nonsense and it will collapse the minute you get it off the lot and all this stuff, which is what Trump believes about Christianity,
Yeah.
then that's why he calls Franklin Graham a great salesman. Because look at these rubes. Look at these idiots who put money in his bucket every Sunday for this bullshit I don't believe. That in and of itself. And so his hold over the cult is fallacious at best. It's absurd that anybody would think he's a Christian anyways. But it's there. It's there. They somehow... There. But it's not going to transfer to a dude with an Indian wife that all of a sudden triggers their why are all these brown people coming? H-1B visas, right?
But the other reason he's not embracing Vance right now is Donald Trump is going to want the spotlight on him all the way through 2028.
Right.
So he's the guy. He's going to make the decision. Hey, everybody, run. Do you want to be loved by Donald? He wants to keep that thing going as long as he can.
I don't. Okay. And this goes to the health thing. And I think we can wrap on this. And by the way, what's your, I mean, we get to see your lovely mug on the CNNs and the whatnots, but what's your show schedule? Do you, your regular, like podcasting schedule and that kind of stuff?
I do my daily show at 11 o'clock Eastern every morning, Monday through Friday.
Excellent. Okay. And is that joewalsh.com will carry people there, or does the guy from the Eagles have that and you've just had to?
And I'm a big Eagles guy.
Somewhere out on that horizon. All right. Anyways, don't get me started.
I got elected to Congress because more people thought they were voting for him.
Sure. He even had a Vote For Me song you could have used.
It's the social contract with Joe Walsh on every platform, including Substack.
Excellent.
Thank you.
The social contract with Joe Walsh on your Substack and the like. So the question boils down to Donald Trump in the last 5 minutes of our hour together, and in the last God knows how many weeks, days, months, or whatever we have with this person on the planet. He is a terrible patient. Does not exercise, is deluded, has been a habitual drug user his entire adult life, with mostly stimulants and then benzos kind of cutting against them. If you listen to Noel Casler or anybody who worked on The Apprentice, for years, I mean, he came up right about the time when people thought cocaine was a vitamin. So there's a reason why a lot of those people jumped on board before they even knew it was bad. And then other people went, I don't care if it's bad, it works. He was in that window the whole time. And he could say, I never drank and I never drank as a cover for the fact that he blazes rails of shit and everybody knows it. On top of that, bad patient, no exercise, shit diet, a history of Alzheimer's and dementia in the family, and age, which is exacerbated by stress. In the first term, I would think you would perhaps agree that he did not age like other presidents because as a sociopath, he's not stressed about what's happening to other people. Everybody else turns gray because they're like, holy shit, what's happening to what I'm making these heavy decisions. He's like, I don't give a shit. That's what you do, right? You just throw the levers like the Wizard of Oz. But those years in between when he was in court and everybody was recognizing he was a broke motherfucker and he's not that good at business and the women that he sleeps with don't necessarily want to sleep with him and all that kind of stuff. And then he comes in and tariffs are going to save us and they take a shit. And I'm going to put my name on the Kennedy Center and then no, you're not. And then, all these things, and then they really do want the Epstein files. These people are expecting me to release this shit. God damn it. I thought I was going to be able to punt this. And then no new wars becomes the Iran war. The stress on an old person.
Yeah. But I'm going to, my final word to you today, my friend, and I love being on with you because you are extremely thought-provoking. That's a fucking compliment.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I think that is the only thing still keeping him alive. It's always been
his rage.
He's he's utterly incapable of empathy.
Right.
Like he is a sociopath. So he doesn't care. He's humanly incapable of caring about anyone or anything but himself.
Agreed.
So I think he still generally, the only thing keeping him alive is he does not feel stress like you and I and a normal human being does. He doesn't give a fuck about the economy. He doesn't give a fuck about the Republican Party. He doesn't give a fuck about Iran. He
Right.
doesn't give a fuck about, he literally doesn't. So I still don't think he experiences any stress. I think his body, there's something going on with his body, but I think the fact that he's living a stress-free life is the only thing keeping him alive.
I think emotionally, you're absolutely right. Insofar as his empathy towards other people, but this is the first time it's affected him, where consequences and like I've said for a long time, he can not feel shame. He's incapable of feeling shame, but he can be embarrassed. He can be embarrassed, and that's why he hates being called. The worst thing you can call him is a dope. When people called him an idiot, or like that's when he went and had his cognitive test, which is also bullshit. He obviously had him because they saw a plaque on his prefrontal cortex, and it looks like cottage cheese, under a sun lamp. Like if you want to know what Trump's brain looks like, it looks like if you went in the movie 28 Days Later into a 7-Eleven and the hot dog roller was still going after 2 years. That's what his brain looks like right now. It's cooked. Yeah. And I think the stress of, like this should work out. I should be able to tell these people. These people should be doing what I say is the only stress he feels. And it's his first time really feeling it since his casino went under, which his dad bailed out and blah, blah, blah. And the first time people started coming after him around the Epstein stuff, which was, again, you can see these like little steps that he drops a little bit. And I think while you're right, he has no empathy for anybody else. If it affects him, that's cortisol doesn't care. Cortisol doesn't care whether you're stressed about somebody else's well-being or your own. It just spikes and that's it. And this is maybe his first time, because if you're strong, you don't care. You know what I mean? Like if I feel like I'm strong and my cortisol, I can get mad at my own cortisol, change my mood, and my cortisol will go down. That's how people affect their own biochemistry in their own body. But if you reach for something and your hand isn't as strong as it used to be, or you threaten somebody and they're not as threatened because you're just basically a blubbery nut with a butthole mouth, yammering at them. You know what I mean? Like then you're like, oh shit.
The only thing that will stress him out is if he can't fucking pick up a golf club and go play golf. I just think like if you're incapable of shame, you're incapable of feeling bad about anything you've done wrong, like you and I do.
Right.
And I just don't think anything impacts him. But we'll see, because clearly buttressing your argument is the fact that
his head is cooked.
His head's cooked, and physically he's falling apart big time.
Yeah,
quickly.
I think JD Vance's only chance at 2028 is pushing him around in a chair like Admiral Pike, and Trump just doing 1 beep for yes and 2 beeps for no. Like he's a Morse code version of Stephen Hawking.
Thank you, my brother. This is so fun
you, Joe.
to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Please come back anytime. I greatly appreciate it. And the next time, I hope some of the things we talked about today work their way into the conversations you're having, and I'd love to hear your feedback on that in the future. You got
it, and I'll promote the shit out of this. Thank you, my brother.
Appreciate it. All right, cheers. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Joe Walsh. I'm about to bring in our dear friend Brian Karam, my fellow Kentuckian. Don't hold that against him. Brian Karam, if I said you had a beautiful body, would you hold it against me? That's the question, I think, more than anything else. I'm going to, hold on, I've got to do a little bit of housekeeping to bring him in. I'd also like to remind everybody that this Friday, Nerd Halen is in San Jose at the Ritz. Oh, sorry. Where am I? Okay. There we go. Like, why did I hate anybody have cursor jumping problems? It can happen to anybody. Eventually they'll have a pill for it, I think. So hold on 1 second. I'll bring in Brian and try to change up the things there. And I got to say, Brian has been sorely missed. I have not had a chance to talk to this gentleman in a little bit. And here he is, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the show, Brian Karam. Looking styling, man. Looks like University of Illinois.
Yeah!
All right. So hold on one second.
I didn't do it.
I'm sorry, I can't speak right now. Brian Karam's on. Yes, he'll be on in just one moment. Thank you very much.
Oh, wait a minute.
Steak and eggs
Sorry,
later
I
on.
got to talk to Hal. Hal's here. We got to let you go.
Thank you very much. Click. So, welcome, Brian Karam, one of my favorite people in the whole world. I honestly mean that, not just because you're good people and a fun hang, but also because of the shit you've given Trump right to his face. And he's still, for those that don't know, the man Donald Trump calls Playboy, because Brian used to write for Playboy. Playboy used to write for Playboy. And that's enough because, and I'll start you off with this one, it is my theory that one of the reasons why Trump can win 86% of all the counties and thinks the whole country is red, but is still pissed that California and New York don't vote for him, is because those are the only areas he cares about. That he wants to ride the jock of traditional media. He so wants to be loved by 60 Minutes, so wants to be loved by, CNN. He doesn't give a shit if Fox or OAN like him. Of course they do. They're idiots. That's his problem. No one he wants respect from gives him respect, and that includes this kind of idea that he wanted to be like a guy on the cover of Playboy, like, I'm the man, right?
He wanted to be Hugh Hefner. Wherever there's a Playboy club, I'll be there. I love it. Yeah.
Right. Which is a great way to empty out all the girls that were there. Right? And they're like, why did everybody call in sick? Oh, okay. Here comes Donnie. So, welcome to the show. Glad you could be with us. It's been far too long.
Yeah. How you doing? Good to see you.
Excellent. My voice is recovering, and I've got to sing this Friday, so I was very nervous for a couple of days. It was getting sketchy, but I think I'm going to be just fine, which is very nice. So, and in the middle of sort of the current unpleasantness with what's going on with my girl and my dad's passage, and I'm going back to Kentucky next week for the we're gonna put some of my dad's ashes in muzzleloaders and fire them off at Friendship in his honor.
God bless you. And God bless him.
Yep. And you and I, after this awful is all over, are going to start our just two guys talking about Kentucky conversation as a podcast. I want to start with this because
it's all by itself. But go ahead.
So yeah, right. So the one thing I guess I want to start with you is that either what story do you think is not getting enough coverage right now that sticks in your craw, or the sort of breaking news this morning about like Iran and Israel firing back at each other and the illusion of a deal?
I think one of the big stories that we really haven't all of them. We're too busy talking about Donnie and the Donettes and his latest faux pas. The fact that he's mentally and physically handicapped, which we've known for years, and he just loves to deflect, so he's going to get mad at Meet the Press and scream and rant and rave, and we're going to talk about that. But the war in Iran and the fact that Saudi Arabia is no longer using U.S. dollars is huge, because it's going to that I think portends there are long-term ramifications to that story that we haven't talked about. I still think that the fact that we are getting rid of immigrants and shooting American citizens without due process is huge.
Sure. Yeah.
That's probably one of the things that we don't talk about much. And then the fact that Donald Trump has come out and said, oh, we're great, the economy is great, my latest numbers are great. And then, of course, the stock market tanks. And I remind everyone that when we report that the numbers are good with Donald, you have to be suspicious, because when he came in office this time, he fired everybody that gave him bad numbers. So I can't trust the numbers. That's the biggest problem. So those dominate. But everything it's come on, take a look at Washington, D.C. It looks like we've got a bomb crater where the East Wing used to be. They've got, some kind of transformer thing on the South Lawn. Donald Trump wants to, his great big giant pubic arch that he wants to put out there. And so
in front of the Arlington too.
Yes, it's blocking the view to Arlington so we can see Donald's pubic arch. Meanwhile, he's talking about, the the wonderful big blue reflecting pool. It's everything with him is about size. Bigger than it, it's like he's got such size issues. It's almost horrible. And he talks always about big, beautiful women, and he's married big, beautiful women, but he compliments big, beautiful men. All the time.
Yeah, that's been all right. His elderly estrogen markers going through the roof and kicking into his latent homosexual tendencies that have been lurking around for years. I mean, there's reasons to hate women, and that's one of them. I suppose, if you came up in that era, look at Roy Cohn. And there's a reason why, again, Donald Trump only had two real friends in his whole life, Roy Cohn and Jeffrey Epstein, and both of them are dead pedophiles. Allegedly dead, obviously, in the case of Epstein, who's probably alive on an island someplace with a new nose, but we'll we'll put a pin in that. So I've been speaking about like the idea, the sort of the illusion of the petrodollar over the last little bit, in that you could see the end of it lined up with petroleum as a primary fuel for the world anyways, and that there's a reason why the Donald Trumps of the world, the sort of resource capitalists in our country and in the Middle East, want to extend that as long as possible, or at least do a big burnout at the end, make as much money as they can, and then just let it collapse, because that's we were headed into an oil glut before Trump came into office.
Yep.
The Hormuz Strait thing, one of the reasons why the price hasn't gone up to $200 a barrel, which it very well will when China runs out of the billion barrels that it stockpiled before the war, like somebody gave them a heads up.
I wonder who that was.
Yeah, it's odd.
How did that go down? That's another underreported story. And what's going on between us and Russia and us and China? Huge. I mean, if there's what you really need to do if you want to find out what's going on in the world is get outside of the United States and outside of this lack of information bubble that we have here. And I blame Trump, but I also blame 40 years of cognitive dysfunction in the press, as we have been bought out by large mega media corporations. Diversity doesn't exist in ownership. Independent media is, sunk. And so we haven't done a whole lot of investigative reporting, and what's happened to 60 Minutes in the last few weeks is just it's just the exclamation point at the end of a very long sentence that begins with, how do we fuck over the media the most?
Yeah, so a lot of these things, I think there'll be a rebound on that the Trumpies aren't counting on. And the same thing with our relationship with Europe, for example. I think it will rebound quite seriously once we get a Democrat president. Like, it really will. Like,
common sense would be nice.
In the same way that exactly. I don't expect there'll be a Republican with any common sense anytime soon, because they're not allowed to, even if they did have it. Like, the theory is that Rubio may be capable of common sense, but he's not allowed to unsheath it lest he get pilloried. So, this is a...
Did you say pilloried or pilloried? Because
I said pilloried. Yeah, exactly. I did say pilloried, but only because Papa and Hillary at the same time, I guess, maybe. But there is, the minute a Democrat comes in with even some semblance of like, we got to rebuild alliances. Hey, sorry about that, asshole, guys. We're going to stick to the law. He was breaking a lot of our laws and not living up to them. I will, and I'm going to consult Congress. Let's get back together. Let's have a giant meeting, straighten out our tariff stuff. If any of the stuff that was, that made sense that he was doing, like in the same way that, Obama put a steel tariffs and appliance dumping tariffs on Europe and China at different points, during his presidency, because they're warranted. We're fine with that. But the rest of it, let's play like, people who actually give a shit about whether the planet survives.
I'd settle for common sense.
I agree. Yep. And that's what it'll look like. That's, I think. Yeah. But there are other things where, our promises won't be worth the paper they're printed on, for fear that Trump will just tear them up like the JCPOA, right? That will take time to remedy.
It won't be remedied until Congress reestablishes preeminence as the third, or as a co-equal branch of government.
Right. Agreed.
And that's what you're going to see nations outside of the United States look at closest. Mm-hmm. is Congress acting as an independent arbiter, or are they suckling up to Donald Trump or the president's, bulbous posterior? Donald Trump is just the end of the, that if you've seen the movie where the train, what is it, Back to the Future 3, where the train plummets over that's where we are now.
Yes, right.
So
well,
how do we survive that?
My big problem with with a lot of like the stuff about the Iran stuff that people were talking about, my concern was not that it would fail miserably in the kind of category of Iraq, was that it would succeed in terms of what his political goals were, in that we absolutely have the capability of regime change in these situations if we don't give a shit about civilian deaths, and the person in charge doesn't care because they're not going to be around when the blowback happens in 10 years, right?
Well, yeah, we do have that, but we haven't exercised that.
Right, yes, agreed. And I think largely because he's chicken shit and they've called his bluff. And I think at one point there's this theory going around, and I don't know, maybe you've heard more about this, the idea that he was toying with the idea of dropping a nuke or a tactical nuke on the sites that we'd hit with the beautiful B-2 bombers, so that they would be, you couldn't even approach him for 10,000 years in his mind, but he also wants to be a president who uses a nuke so he could be historic in that regard.
Well, I've heard the rumor, but all my sources inside those who are allowed to talk and haven't been ousted by Pete.
Right.
I love to look at myself in the mirror, Hegseth. My sources at the DOD all say that was never really a big consideration. It's a consideration. There's always a consideration. Is there going to be an incident or a set of circumstances that leads us to having to use it? And that's all it ever got to. Nobody would ever, inside the DOD, recommend that he would do it. And I think that Donald Trump loves to speak out of his ass. And if somebody agrees with him, everything is a trial balloon with him. So if he says something and gets no pushback, he'll keep going. So he may have said it. I wasn't in the room, so I don't know. I only know that the people who were in the room said it was never, ever a serious consideration. The biggest problem they have with Donald was getting a definition of why we went to war in Iran, which we still don't have, and what are the conditions by which we get out of the war with Iran, which we still don't have, and Donald Trump declaring that we have been completely obliterated them on at least 3 or 4 occasions. The war is over. They've got a blockade. We've got a blockade. None of it makes sense. And we can't report on it very well because reporters loathe to get into that area. We're having to look at the BBC and even Al Jazeera as better sources for what's actually going on over there. That's how we found out about our bases and the fact that we have, members of our own military who said, wait a minute, I was supposed to be deployed over to that base in Kuwait and it's gone. So, so that's a huge problem. And Donald Trump, the big thing that I've heard that I have confirmed that he wanted to do was put boots on the ground. And that was like, no, we're not going to do that. And they talked him out of it because they even pointed to what he said about no new wars. He doesn't think of this. He does actually believe it's an excursion or a weekend trip. And he
thinks it's like Venezuela again. Right.
Yeah, he thinks
3
that's
months.
what it is because it's not a war unless you put boots on the ground. So he thinks in his mind, as empty as it is, and the yodel in his canyon, I mean, you could yell into that empty crevice that he calls a head and probably get, hello, 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 for, the echo would be ongoing and ever going. But he believes that it's not a war and that he is winning. And so it's frustrating.
Right. So this is, I think Frontline made this, and
I'm proud to be the first president in decades who started no new wars. That's very good.
That's very good.
No new wars. Instead, I brought our troops back home. No new wars.
As Donald Trump campaigned for his second term, a promise.
No new wars. They said his personality will create wars. I said, no, my personality is going to keep us out of wars. Look at him, listen to him. He's going to start a war. Listen to his rhetoric. They thought I was going to start a war. Let me tell you something. I'm going to stop World War III.
I'd like to say for the record, and by the way, I'm going to try it. There's been an audio issue with you on going out. You sound fine to me, but there was an issue going out to the stream. I'm not quite sure what that is, so I'm trying to remedy it. But I hopefully switching cameras, it does one of those little blurby things. Here's the issue that I have with him going, I didn't start no new wars or whatever. He ran on getting us out of Afghanistan and then he didn't. And also, he was running in 2020 with the idea that he was absolutely going to do this in Iran. Then, as much as people want to go like, why did we do it? And why did he do it now? And blah, blah, blah. Like, PNAC, that's why. When you ultimately boil down the Trump presidency, he's no different than Bush or Reagan or HW in that regard.
Not a good liar. That's how he's different. He didn't set up the predicate to go into war like Trump did. I mean, sorry, like Bush did or Reagan or anybody else.
Because he doesn't think he has to. Because he doesn't think he has to. He thinks he can just sharp elbow his way through it. But what's the fucking difference between the plan that was hatched basically during Reagan that became PNAC, the Project for a New American Century in the 90s, and Iran was the fucking capstone on all these countries they were going to knock down, right? Including, the shit he did in Syria, the Kurdish areas of Iraq, and all that kind of stuff, and Sudan, which is eating itself right now. You could argue that he contributed to that just by letting it fester. Right. And still letting it fester. Right.
And where he puts his money or doesn't put his money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So how is he any different? The tax break that's in the big BS bill was the same tax bill, that was written up that was been on Mitch McConnell's desk since fucking 2002 or whatever.
Yeah, since the turn of the century, actually. Well, that's Donald Trump. Is not as good a liar as he likes to think he is. He is a grifter. So
because he doesn't have to. He's got more sycophantic followers, so he doesn't have to lie to them. They'll just eat it. They'll just eat shit sandwiches and think it's roast beef. It's the weirdest thing. He's never had to build the skill.
Yeah, because he listens to what people say, and then he feeds it back to them and tells them what they want to hear. Mm-hmm. And that's his superpower for those who still follow him. Those numbers are much smaller than they have been. But the sycophant who stays with him does so because, the old adage, it's easier to fool people than convince them they've been fooled. That's Donnie. And so he listens, he spits it back out, and they believe him. So he says no new wars. He says, Christian nation, those are not everyone who loves Donald Trump is a racist. However, every racist loves Donald Trump. I'll say that. And the same with everyone who votes for him isn't, necessarily a Christian, but the Christian nationalists all love him. So Trump has that innate ability to do that. But as far as setting up the old political framework of here's why we're doing it, no, he's never done that. And the chickens are coming home to roost with that because of the fact that there are even members of MAGA. Why do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene shed him? Why do you think that there are people that have, Our Republican Legacy and all these other groups of former Republicans who at one point or another, or one time or another, loved or voted for or supported Donald Trump, no longer do it because they're going, well, wait a minute, you lied. You said you wouldn't start any new wars. You did. And, when he says he can't even define a ceasefire. He says, well, it just means we're firing each other a little less. I'm going, look at the two words, ceasefire.
Right. Exactly. It's firing. And my problem isn't necessarily with him in this case. And it goes to the sort of the media normalcy bias that a lot of people are talking, where they just,
there.
Oh my God. They just as soon as he says it's over, we've got a deal. Everybody's like, it's over. Like Barack Ravid or whatever on Axios is fucking hilarious. That dude, people worry about CBS. That dude is a stenographer for he's the new Caroline Levitt. It's really weird.
Look at most of the people in the briefing room that he allows in the briefing room.
Right.
He's fighting me every time I try to get in there. They don't want me in there. Look at the people that are in the briefing room and look at the people that are in the pool. most of them will not push back. And some of them are afraid of losing their jobs. Some of them are stenographers. Some of them actually want to work for the president. And when I've spoken to them, you can always tell. And I've asked this of many of those that I know who have done this. They'll ask a question and they'll preface the question with, well, as legacy media or mainstream media or corporate media has said this, what about that? And isn't Donald really doing a great job? And so I'll go to them and I'll say, where'd you get the question? How you phrased it? Oh, we shopped it around the office. And I go, so it was given to you. And some of them have confessed, fed to them by the president and his people, including Caroline Leavitt, has fed those questions to them. They spit them back out. They really want to work for Don. And they completely don't understand. They completely have no idea why we're supposed to be there or what we're supposed to do, or the fact that, I take it as a little point of pride that I've managed to piss off every press secretary I've ever covered, including those presidents that I've, more or less liked. That's the job. That's that. Helen Thomas said, hey, if you want a friend in DC, get a dog. I thought Harry Truman said that. And she goes, yeah, who do you think told it to Harry?
So there's an excellent point in terms of like pushing back on these things. And obviously Trump is against. That's why you don't trust the numbers that because he's rearranged who's giving out the numbers. And then he's shuffled around the people who can ask about the numbers.
Yes.
Right. And then he thinks he can basically gin up reality through magical thinking. And there's a hypnotism trick I want everybody else to watch for when they hear Trump talk. He's been using it for years and he thinks it works. Maybe it does with a certain, with weak minds. Like
I think I know where you're going, but go ahead.
Think of it. He does this one. Think of it. Think of it. We've got the best numbers in the world. Think of it. We've got the best, we are doing better, think of it, than we have ever done in the history of, think of it. Like
no one has ever done is the other one. Many people are saying, they say to me, sir, how could you do it so well? That hypnotic suggestion is about trying to register with, the rank and file voter. And so you're right. Those are two or three tells when Donald's trying to bullshit you.
I was watching a Hitler speech, as you do, because I'm convinced the other day, because I'm convinced that Trump is a Timu clone of Pervitin Hitler and Fat Elvis. That if you watch Fat Sweaty Elvis and with Pervitin angry Hitler, that's who we've got right now. Like that mix.
You missed something. You got to mix something else in there.
Tony Clifton. No.
The open mic stand-up comedian who wants to be the headliner, but will never be anything more than the.
But enough about Jimmy Dore.
Yeah. That's who he loves thinking he's funny. And he makes jokes all the time at other people's expense. And to your point, I remember sitting in the East Room one time when he he brought in all the people who, I think it was the Clemson football team or whatever. And he's trying to make jokes. And he's talking about members of it. Right. Look at these big, beautiful men. Look at this guy. And he's talking about his, Secretary of Treasury at the time. It wasn't Bissent. Bissent reminds me of Brad Majors from, Rocky Horror Picture Show. But he goes with the big glasses. He goes, look at him. He can never play football. Isn't he funny? I mean, and then he starts complimenting the big, beautiful, football players.
I don't like if Mamdani walked in as he was, as he was complimenting that farmer. I we would have seen some welcome to Pride Month, everybody. We would have seen some geriatric thirst porn like nobody's ever seen before. Let me explain where this theory came from. I want to show you something, and this is first ever or whatever. You might recognize this fellow. Hello. Hi, fellas. It's the guy with the little Charlie Chaplin mustache and the really scared little girl who has to go home with Goring or whoever the fuck that is. And a hitman from Yeah, right there. Yeah, there's a lot of similarity. Boy, it's like right out of Central Casting. So
I love when
this
he
is
uses that line.
yeah, this is one of those. This is a Hitler speech in 1938 when he's talking about how he went to Europe and he gave them every chance. But I want you to look at what he says about the military.
Rejection after rejection, I gave orders to rearm the German military and bring it to the highest level possible. Today I can openly state we have rearmed to an extent the world has never seen.
Sound familiar? Like nobody's ever seen before? I rebuilt our military.
We're the most powerful military.
Look, I mean, for fuck's sake, like literally, I gave orders to rearm the German military
and bring it to the highest.
Bring us to the highest level possible, to a level nobody's ever seen before. It's a fucking quote. He's quoting Hitler when he talks about the military.
And then listen to him when he's talking this past weekend on Meet the Press, and he's denying that he ever was a man of peace or didn't want to start a war. And then he said, why do you think I rebuilt the military? Well, let's talk about reality. He didn't rebuild the military. That's not, he may say it, he may want it to be true, but it's not true. And if you look at the process through which they've gone to pay for the military spending, he did not go build it all up. He has actually, as many generals say, they're afraid he's torn it all down. Well, him and the wonderful, I love to look at myself in the mirror, Pete Hegseth, the guy who cosplays, Department of Defense. He can't call himself what he is, the Department of Defense. He's the Department of War. And he wants to go in and look at himself and his tattoos in a mirror. And he spent, what was it, $5-6 million on a makeup room at the Pentagon. Then then he kicks the press out of their offices saying it's because they want it as a secured location. These are people who don't want you looking. It's very similar to not only Hitler, but the Wizard of Oz. Don't look behind the curtain. Don't don't do that.
Mix, the Hitler, like, I'm building up the military to the greatest level anybody's ever seen. I told them NATO is no good. I don't need Europe. I gave them every chance, and now we're building it up on our own. We don't even need them, which is basically what Hitler said in that speech in 1938. And again, I'm not worried about Trump becoming Hitler because Hitler
I don't think he'll make it through the next 958 days.
I agree. You're edging towards 90, but this is the other mix of who he is.
Are you lonesome tonight?
Thank you for the mood.
And I am. And I was. Damn. I mean, darn, excuse me.
And he forgets the words at one point. Where he's like, when he goes, darling, so it was a bit of plus tax.
Someone said the world's a stage and each of us play a part. Plus tax.
Right. So that was
that poor bastard was only about 40 there.
Yeah. Yeah. So was Hitler in 1938. And understand, Trump is older and in worse shape. He's on the same drug regimen as both of these guys. Now, I have a theory, and I'm curious what you could find out. Ooh. Brian Karam, intrepid reporter for the Daily Planet. There's been a lot of debate about the crusty nature of Trump's gnarly hand and the bruising, whether it's just aspirin and handshakes or whatever, and all the other problems that he has. And of course, him carving off a loaf twice during his little White House meetings lately, where my favorite one was the lady who was doing this right behind him. But like Doug Burgum got interrupted with Trump farting, and you can see him stagger and then try to just keep going, just soldier through. But so my girl has been going through treatment for breast cancer. She's had chemo. She just finished. She's starting radiation, and the schedule that Donald Trump has been on, where he's basically gone for about 5 days at the end of every month, where he's allegedly doing interviews, but they are pre-taped from days before, especially with family members like Laura Trump. They are not done the day of. They're all super friendlies, and they're filmed like a week before, edited and to be released the weekend when he's out of public eye.
Keep going. You're getting there.
The golf outings are, stock footage of him golfing, like he did. They front loaded a bunch of footage that it looks like to me that little bruise on his hands is exactly where you would do chemo treatment. And that when you get chemo, you are the next day afterwards, they give you steroids after the treatment to get your, make sure you don't get sick and your bone marrow and all that kind of stuff. They give you that bone marrow shot or whatever. And then they give you steroids to kind of keep your energy up. And then the third day is when it's the worst. And then about 2 days after that, you start getting back to relative normal.
That is one theory. I'll tell you what, this is from a doc, and I was looking it up while you were speaking, and I can't find the name of the medicine, but there is a doctor at the CDC who has worked with patients who have mental issues, that is, dementia or early onset Alzheimer's, who believe that it more lines up with the MRIs, the cognitive tests, this experimental early Alzheimer medication that you have to go in for it's all the predicates of what you were talking about. Explains the edema on the hands, explains even the cankles, the lack of energy, and the cognitive tests in the MRI. I think those are probably the giveaways. Could it be a cancer? Yeah, it could, but I think there's so much wrong with this man. I can't even begin.
Right.
But there are those who believe he's undergoing experimental treatment for, early onset dementia. And the fact that he keeps telling everyone that he aced these cognitive tests. I just want to remind everyone, look, I took one of them live so you could see what it was. Basically, all these cognitive tests do are confirm that you are competent to stand trial. That's it. So Donald Trump is competent to stand trial, and he's urging every other president.
They said I was competent to stand trial. So
those are the two ongoing. You've touched on one. The other one is that it's early onset dementia. I don't know how early it is, but that it's dementia and that he's receiving experimental treatment for it, which is why he goes to the NIH, the former NIH, and goes to the hospital every, month.
Right.
At the end of every month for a few days.
So for the who's at home, the Montreal Cognitive Exam Assessment, the MOCA, is what he has been getting. And they make you go like 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E, that's it. And then take that box and then draw that box. Draw a cube and then another cube and draw the lines between it and then draw a clock. These are the first ones. Then you got to pick, then it's, can you spot the bumpy horse? Hold on, I gotta get this right.
I like when he said, as it goes on, it gets harder.
It gets harder and harder as you do. I aced it. Right. So he does. Let's scroll this up. So then you got to remember the words on it. Face velvet church daisy red, that kind of thing. And then later on they'll go face velvet church daisy red. Do you remember face church velvet daisy red, whatever? And they'll go, yeah, I remember. And they do two of them later. There are no points on that one. The one he brags about the most, person, woman, man, camera, TV. You can still get a 30 out of 30 and fuck that one up. Yeah. That's not even registered on the fucking thing. I can't stress that enough. Ladies and gentlemen, the biggest story of Trump's whole like person, woman, man, camera, TV horse shit is that right there. No points. You don't have to remember that part of it to get a 30 out of 30.
However, it is valuable in determining whether or not you have short-term memory loss.
Right.
So it can be indicative of a greater problem, which any doctor that I've spoken to about it has told me. So Donald Trump has problems, whether
Yes.
I think they're both physical and mental. And
Yes.
look, I've been in the same room with a guy during the first administration, briefly during this administration, very briefly, because they don't like me around.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that it's obvious to me, as one who has been in the same room with a man on multiple occasions, he's definitely not. He's slipped a cog or two.
Yeah.
He's not the guy
Not
that
the
he
same
was
dude.
before.
Right.
Yeah, and so who's running the show is the next question. And here again, to the very first question that you asked me about underreported, this may be very underreported. Who's actually running the show at the White House? Well, you got to look to Stephen. I have a whole goddamn box of spray-on hair in my closet. Miller versus Susie. I love everything that I can do to get my hands on Power Wiles. Those two people right now seem to be those who are very much leading the charge for what's going on in the White House. Pete Hegseth is really on his own out there and loving it. But who's carrying the water? Who's actually the one doing all the work? Well, you got to go
Marco
to his
Rubio.
His favorite Uber driver, Marco Rubio. It sure as shit ain't J.D. Vance. That guy couldn't even come into the briefing room and do a decent job. Notice the first person that they brought into the briefing room when Caroline Leavitt went on paid maternity leave. By the way, millions of American women can't get that, but she could. By the way, millions of Americans can't get affordable health care, but Congress certainly took a Christmas break without taking up affordable health care while they have free health care and pay for life. All that bullshit aside, all that hypocrisy aside, you take a look at how this is operating, and it's obvious that the guy, the general in the field, the guy who's at least keeping the damn train running is Marco, and those who are dictating it are Stephen Miller, particularly on the issues of immigration and the absence of due process, racism, misogyny, and all that. That's him, and then all the other bullshit is Susie Wiles.
Right. And there was some rumors that she was going to take it on the heel and toe because she's going through cancer treatment and was tired and basically was doing, I think, pulling a Tulsi in that a lot of them just don't want to be there when the ball drops. That there's a bunch of people who are like, I'm cool when the party's going well, but when the bill comes due or there's cleanup necessary, I got a thing. They're all going to take it on the heel and toe.
Stops. They don't want to be without a chair. And that's
right.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And more importantly, they all see, the end coming sooner rather than later. I remind everyone, 957 days left to go in our countdown to liberty. And Donald Trump ain't gonna make it.
No,
he won't.
Yeah, I have got there are so many parts of this that
I'm here for all of it, Hal. Let's rock and roll.
I know. So his own, I mentioned with our dear friend Joe Walsh during the first hour, we were talking a little bit. Yeah, we were talking a little bit about the follow-on. So let's say, for the sake of argument, and by the way, you do get 5 points for delayed recall on the person, woman, man, camera, TV thing, but they can cue you with it, and you don't get points for that. But let me tell you something about Donald Trump's mocha. They're giving him the same one every time. It's always person, woman, man, camera, TV. It's always the same one.
Melania? No, that's a camera.
That's a camera. Bumpy horse. It's Bumpy Horse. Horny pig. There's Bumpy Horse, Horny Pig, and Hairy Cat. And they're all there. And I recognize. I win.
I don't want to talk about but that does bring me to one thing that you and John were talking about earlier. I caught the last 5 minutes of what you were talking about he lives stress-free. I'll push back on that. I think there is no person on this planet more stressed than Donald Trump. And I think it's because part of him realizes he's losing it, and the part of him that's cogent,
that's new. Yes.
is
terrified.
Will not go gentle into that good night. But the rest of him, I'll give it to you, when he's not coherent, he doesn't feel stressed because he doesn't know what the fuck's going on.
Right, sure.
Every time I've seen him recently, in the Oval Office. He loved to talk about Sleepy Joe. Well, what about Drowsy Don? It looks like a weekend at Bernie's. Every time he's he's slumped over while someone's talking. And then you have Marco Rubio testifying before Congress. He's never seen the man sleep in a meeting when the man is sleeping in a meeting while Marco is talking. The amount of bullshit out of this administration and the fact that they will not confront it tells you, to your point, they're all just dancing until the music stops, and then they're going to either try and grab their chair or get out of the room. And that's the stress that Don, when he's cogent, feels, because he knows when he is cogent, and I've seen windows of consciousness with him in this administration.
Well, that's what you have during that time of the day. Like I was saying, I was saying last year that by spring he'd have a 4-hour window. And if you get outside that 4-hour window, they're going to have to do a bunch of cleanup. So everything he does is going to be in that 4-hour window. I think now it's about 2.5. I think it's way shorter. And I think part of the Kristen Welker thing was time difference being what it is, sundowning being what it is, that he just ran out of runway while he was sitting there talking to her.
I think that's part of it. I agree with you about how much time he's put in. Little Marco Rubio. This is a story about Marco Rubio. Little Marco Rubio, rah, 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 was out there in front of Congress cheering before he had to go and do his Uber driving for the administration and cheerleading Donnie, and said that no one works harder than Don. Sometimes he calls me at 2 or 3 in the morning, and that's a problem. That's not indicative of the fact that he's working. It's that he rolled over, burped after a nap and called you, not realizing what time it is. This is not an indication of that. And one of the biggest problems I have with the pool reports that we get today. Now, back in the day, during a pool report would start with, one of the things it would start with is at 7 a.m. or 7:30 a.m., the Marine Corps Guard walked outside of the West Wing. The Marine Corps Guard walked inside the West Wing at 5:30 or 6 p.m. Day over. We marked the day by recording when that Marine Corps Guard came out, because that tells you when the president is in the Oval Office.
Right.
So it's important for us to mark that time. We've stopped marking the time. I keep asking for those who are doing the pool to do it, and they don't. They'll tell me privately when I'm not there. Yeah, well, the Marine Corps Guard didn't come out till about 11. Sometimes it's as late as noon. They're always gone by 4 or 5 unless there's somebody there that's visiting Donald. So you're right. The window is he's working for about 4 hours a day, tops. And that doesn't even mean that he's not napping when he's in the Oval, although the Marine Corps Guard is out there. What it tells you is that this president does not and is not in, does not have the ability to be in, nor is he in the Oval doing his job. And that's why you've got people like Susie Wiles and Steve and I love my spray on hair Miller doing the job. And you've got, Marco Rubio, little Marco Rubio. Remember Marco? He's the one who's, like I said, he's the poor worker bee who's holding it all down, which is why he had the first job after Caroline Leavitt went out. He was the first one to show up in a briefing room. Historically, the very first Secretary of State in history to conduct a presidential press briefing. Right. No one is. Could you imagine? Could you just imagine any of the others?
This is a good question. Because this is one of the things that boggles my mind more than anything else. There are enough, you'd think, with a number of sycophantic, just crony capitalist business guys around him, that anybody would want any job that they could possibly get in this administration, right? Now, granted, a bunch of them, the really effective ones, aren't going to give up their paycheck to come be DNI, right?
Right.
But you would think that there were at least some, other Fox hosts or rando Congress people in super safe red districts that have been on the Intel committee or something like that you could shuffle into the DNI position. Never mind that a sane person would just go, okay, my person left, I'll just take the deputy that's been there a while and move them to the top because they know how everything works and they've been working for a while like an adult until we can actually get somebody through the Senate like an adult. But he would be a different person for that to be possible. It's just fucking bananas. But like nobody wants to do anything. That's why Marco Rubio has fucking 6 jobs. It's why Pulte is doing, is doing 2 jobs at once.
What about Todd Blanche? He couldn't get anybody. I honestly think we're about a week away from Harris Faulkner at Fox News.
Yes, I agree. Jesus Christ. Jesse Waters isn't going to turn down the fucking paycheck. That's the thing. Anybody who's making what's effectively Fox minimum wage, they're going to get a fucking job in the administration at some point because it's all PR anyways. That's why Pete Hegseth got a fucking makeup stand put in the Pentagon, because it's not about doing the job. It's about looking like you're doing the job. Look at Kash fucking Patel flying in.
I'd rather not, but
I know. Flying into the fucking crime scene with Charlie Kirk, wearing a lady's medium jacket with a patch he didn't earn to make himself look like a door kicker, sitting around fucking licking rocks, going, I think the killer went that way. Like, what are you doing there? You're the head of the FBI. You're useless. Go back to your fucking office and coordinate, asshole. Like,
yeah. Well, come on. Pete
why does no one
quoting Pulp Fiction?
Oh God, fuck's sake!
I mean, come on. I was laughing. And you saw the audience.
Say Department of War again, motherfucker. Say Department of War again. English, do you speak it? Yes, it's just so stupid.
They don't. That's
all right. So this
Bible,
is.
Do you read it? No.
Right. Yeah. So again, I think it's all 100% horseshit. I don't. His Christianity is as phony as Caroline Leavitt's crucifix. This is the moment Trump walks out. So
more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk.
Also, by the way, that I love that sentence. There was more evidence than ever presented. Well, then present it, you dumb motherfucker. Get at it. What are you talking about?
More evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk
your
about
elections in this country. We're like a third world country. Your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked, and so is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But Mr. President,
you're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat in the rain with you.
I know.
I've sat in the rain with you for an hour, on and off in the rain.
Fuck,
and I've given you enough
embarrassing.
time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr.
A country can never be great with a dishonest press.
We traveled all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
Steps right on the microphone, right? Pats her. I like the whole. Okay, first of all, that is not a guy who's not stressing.
Yeah.
That is a guy.
Is stressing. Big time.
Yeah. That is a guy who is being called out by a woman, which is the worst thing that can happen to him.
Yep. Absolutely. But I know Kristen well, and she was always good in the White House when she was there. I'm glad she's at Meet the Press, and I'm glad she did that. I am ashamed for the United States of America, angry with the president of the United States. I don't care if he's a Democrat or Republican. That type of behavior is
pathetic,
unprofessional, pathetic, weak. And if you can't sit there, here's the question you have to ask yourself. Everyone who votes, if Donald Trump, the president of the United States, cannot take that type of questioning from a reporter who has no power, how could he stand up and represent the United States against our enemies?
Right. Yeah. What do you think first of all, the Iranian negotiations are non-existent. We'll get into that. Like, that'll be our last 10 minutes of the hour, because I think that's the key to all this, and partly why he walked out and partly why he's stressed and stuff, because he can't bully his way out of it. But what a pussy. Like, the whole time, I don't know how, like, there's some maggots that were like, he showed her, and they made like AI videos of him picking her up and throwing her in a dumpster, because that's what you do with women when you're a Christian nationalist, I guess.
You're a weak man.
Right. I like the fucking weakness of this dude. Let me give a shot at this. Ask me about evidence of vote rigging in my last election and my accusations. Just fired up. Brian Karam, Playboy, fired up. Ask me the hardest question you got about why I lost my last election.
Mr. President, you say that the election was rigged for Democrats. However, a lot of Republicans down ballot won. The only one on the ballot who lost was you. How do you explain the fact that you cannot rig an election that way. It's physically impossible to do it. Could you explain that to us, please?
Well, I think if you're using the Jimmy Carter concerns about mail-in ballots that have been with us in a modern world, they're hacking and all kinds of other stuff. So we may not even know how things can be manipulated, and we need to.
That doesn't make any sense.
I agree, but I think we should look into it because I found it curious that all the other people in my party would get elected for the very same values that I have, but somehow I don't. I find that would be manipulative. So
doesn't that show that you have no support among those, that it's actually you that are at fault and not those who share your policy positions, but you? It's an indictment of you, sir, is it not?
Well, that would be one way to take it, and certainly that's a possibility. And if it is, I completely accept that. But what I will tell you is that I find that, and a lot of my voters find that very curious. So we want to look into it a little bit more. I want us to have the greatest, most secure elections in this country, and I want to make sure that we do. If that ends up, if we look into all this.
Mr. Right, President, according to independent evaluations by several organizations, this was a very free and fair election. And
agreed. But going through the courts, we're gonna present. We have
accept the loss.
That is a fair criticism for people who haven't seen the same evidence that I have, and we will be presenting that in court. Well, that's what we will do. I completely agree. Here it is. This is why I would even say this in the first place. And you could say there's multiple ways to read this, but I also think it's curious. Now, again, this could just be, like you said, a social circumstance of the unpopularity of a president versus the values. But I find that disconnect hard to believe, and therefore we're looking into it.
Oh,
it does
Hal,
not.
You should run for president because that's exactly.
Well, here's the thing. It's not that hard. That's the point. Like, I was completely bullshitting. But it's not that hard. It's not that hard to bullshit and still seem stable and intelligent and focused and not nuts. That's the point, is that if you can't even lie well, I don't trust you as a president. It may be required.
You're crooked. You're all crooked.
Everybody's crooked. You better work out your press. Yeah, we're like a third world country. He's just like, it's like muscle memory from 2021. Like
he has not flinched from his core speech in at least 6 years. That stump speech that he has, he repeats it.
He can't.
Variations on it, depending on whether it's sunflowers or hornets. Wherever he is, they'll throw in something. Here I am in Wisconsin where they have cows. This is the worst than anything that's ever happened. Here I am in Iowa where they have corn. But it's the same speech. You're right.
The other thing is, ladies and gentlemen, we live in the time of great technological advancements, not the least of which are both standard and AI noise suppression. That if you are in a barn and it's raining, they can isolate your voice away from a static sound of that kind of rain so that people can hear you. So to Kristen Welker and Donald Trump, get on with it, you old farts. You can keep talking, and as long as you can hear each other, it doesn't matter. Everybody at home will. You're mic'd. Keep talking, shitheads. The rain doesn't matter anymore. It's not 1940. You're not shooting a fucking television show and waiting for a plane to go overhead. God damn it. It's not an episode of Miami Vice. Yeah, exactly. Holding for helicopters, holding. Right. It's so stupid. And I like the reaction. You could tell that. Yeah. Yes, right. He just wanted out.
I can't tell you the number of times all presidents pretend like, for example, when they go out to
Reagan, right? That was
I'm
sorry.
Yeah. And one of my favorite moments, Reagan, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. And I was standing there as this was asked. And this is one of my mentors from ABC News, Sam Donaldson, who asked it. Reagan's walking out. He's limping. And Sam says, Mr. President, I see you limping. Does that mean you're a lame duck, sir? And Reagan, who always had his ear like this and pretended like he couldn't hear, turned and looked at Sam and said, I heard that, Sam. And so we all know you can hear us.
You could totally hear, right?
You absolutely can hear us if you want. Donald pretends like he can't all the time unless he likes the question.
Can I one of the other things that he is soothing with, and then we'll close on the Iran deal that was never there. is the fact that he is self-soothing with fixtures like he did when he would build buildings. Knows nothing about schematics, knows nothing about blueprints, can't figure out how a building is built, has no idea, but he wants to pick the fucking drapes and the faucets and make everything gold and pick this is Jerusalem stone, so obviously it's holy or something. I don't know. We stole it from there. Whatever the fuck he's talking about. He's self-soothing with this shit about the reflecting pool.
Oh yeah.
And he couldn't remember the Washington Monument. He said the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington. Think of it, the beautiful spire. Because he almost said, I think, Washington Memorial as well, like his brain. And when that's not it, and then he couldn't find the word again to say monument, so he just went the beautiful spire. Okay, that's Pasobic. Pool is almost filled already on Monday. Very fast, only halfway filled on Friday. What a nutless. Can you imagine typing that and not feeling like a dickhead? Like, oh my God, I'm fucking pathetic. Pool is almost filled already on Monday. Like, you can just. He's losing his patriot chub by the fucking syllable. Very fast after only halfway filled on Friday. I'm beginning to think that
it only took 2 days. they have water. They poured it in.
Wow.
How amazing. Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's so gross. It's like, but he keeps it like he's pulling out his blueprints and pointing to the hole in the ground. I'm doing this.
To your point, and that's an excellent point to make, because watch, every time Donald Trump is in the Oval Office, they give him audio or visual. They give him
things
a little
to play with.
Model. They give him a poster just so he has something to
gives
keep
a little
him busy.
B-2 bomber that he can point to. They're much bigger than that. Like, we fucking know, dummy. We're pretty sure you couldn't fit a pilot in that toy they gave you to put on your desk.
We shrink him down. We have a whole ray.
That's right. Honey, I shrunk the B-2s. Rick Moranis, we love him. He got punched. He's back in Spaceballs. So good. Which is true. All right. So the last little bit, and I know we're going a bit over, and I want to thank you, Brian Caron, for being on here. What's your current schedule, by the way, sir? I'm always on as far as streaming and posting.
Oh, well, let's see. I don't like to do live that much because
I know.
I figure, I did a lot of live television. It was always for a reason. Like, here's a tornado. I don't like to go live for Donald. I don't want to give him.
Yes, I understand.
He's not.
That's my burden, not yours. Right.
Yeah. So I post at Salon. I have a weekly column on Salon, and I try to post 3 times a day on social media, wherever fine social media is sold. We have a weekend podcast called Just Ask the Press, wherever fine podcasts are sold, where we do a weekend review of the news. And then Just Ask the Question, which is a podcast that posts twice a week, and it's interviews with celebrities and about something.
I've been on there.
And yeah, that's right. You have, and other things that are not about politics, because God damn it, I've got to get away from.
I'm with you, man. I like the Nerd Halen shows and my Ultimate Jam Night, my stand-up shows, are my salvation in the middle of all this stuff. It allows me to continue doing this and still have, some semblance of sanity. Okay, so
when I can get up and play music, brother, or stand up, I'm in. That's it. Just give me just something to do that keeps me sane. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
When it's like, I want to say it was like a month ago now, Donald Trump comes out on a Friday and clearly does this pump and dump bullshit. We've got a deal. They've agreed to everything. It's going to be awesome. The oil prices cadavered. Stocks went up. He wrote it through the weekend, and then basically it died a soft death. Basically, they started padding it late Saturday night and then over Sunday so they wouldn't have the futures market have a shock, and then tipped it a little Monday morning, like, we're almost there. Give me until Wednesday, so that as it all, reversed what had happened, it wouldn't be drastic. It just went back to where it was, but it took, overnight it went bing, and then boing, boing, bong, bing, bong, bing, bong, whatever he talks about.
Ricochet rabbit.
Yep. It did that, and then it went down, it went back down to where it was over 4 days as opposed to in a single day. There is no Iran deal. They are not talking to anyone. There is no there. Discussions are not ongoing. This is all horseshit, right? Am I?
Yes. Well, there are surrogates who are speaking with surrogates from Iran. Direct contact, probably not so much. But the point of the matter being that you're right. He does it for market strategy. He does it so he can say that he's doing something.
Right.
He can say that it's over with. He can say that he's obliterated them. He lies incessantly. Remember, he was going to end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. It's still ongoing. This is a miasma from which he cannot extricate himself easily. He has given power to Iran that they did not have prior to the war, the closing of the Straits of Hormuz, which they did not do. And I remind everyone, if you really want to know what the Donald Trump administration is doing and where we are in this war, I will take you back to, what was it, May 5th, a little more than 6 weeks ago, in the White House press briefing room when little Marco Rubio showed up as the first substitute for Caroline Leavitt and said, all we want is for things to go back the way they were. Well, they were the way they were before you made them the way they weren't. And now you're trying to get back to ground zero that you had when you had the deal with Iran. Remember, it took Barack Obama 20 months and half a dozen countries to negotiate a deal with Iran that had international inspectors in place to make sure that they did not enrich uranium to the point that they could make a nuclear weapon, but only advance their nuclear energy facilities. You canceled that. Then you bombed them. Now you want to make a deal with them. Now, as much as I dislike the extremists in Iran, place yourself in their shoes for a second. Are you going to make a deal with someone who broke the deal that you had and they want the same deal back? And the only reason, the short-sighted reason that Donald Trump did all of this in the beginning was because he didn't like Barack Obama. He wanted to cancel everything that Barack Obama
had his name on it. Right.
And so that's why we are where we are. Is there any plan to end it? No. Because to your point, we're not talking face to face. And Donald Trump doesn't want to acknowledge one of the things that Iran has said that is factual. All of this didn't start in 1979. All of this started in 1953. And it's our fault because we started it with the oil companies and the British, who didn't like the fact that Iran, who at the time had a democracy, wanted to nationalize their oil companies and give it to the people. Standard Oil and Shell Oil didn't want that by any stretch of the imagination, nor did British Petroleum want that.
Right.
So we upended their democracy. We installed the Shah, and that moron is the one that created the far right and the clerics and the mullahs and the ayatollahs by what he did. So they have a point that we don't want to acknowledge. And we have a point that they don't care to acknowledge because it doesn't matter to them. Yeah, we're in charge. You put us here. Deal with it. So we're as much at fault as they are. And to your point, exactly. There is no deal and there is no negotiations until Donald Trump probably leaves office.
Yeah, there's two issues I see with the entirety of it. Is one, who the fuck are you talking to? How do you know you're talking to the right people? And like, if you are talking to people who want
them,
right? Yeah, we're down to 2.5, and we're almost halfway through 3, whatever his bullshit is.
Yeah,
who are you talking to? And then even if those people agree to something, even if they're coordinating and talking through proxies and making shit happen, how do you know that those people can implement a deal if they wanted to? Or they're being honest brokers and trust you at all after you tore up the last fucking deal. That this isn't just cover during the time. Like, why? If I was an Iranian leader, I wouldn't trust Donald Trump. He tore up the last deal we had. So what in the ever-loving shit should we expect? Like, why would you sign a deal with that dude? Why would you not go? I mean, honestly, the Iranians, and I don't expect to be giving ideas because, again, I think we're both to the Iranian people. Both our countries are run by sociopaths right now. I feel very bad for all the
I think
civilians there.
sociopaths, but go ahead.
Sure. I've done that before, but they don't seem to care.
Well, those are the narcissistic sociopaths.
That's right. Yeah, they're above it all. But I do think one of the things that if the Iranians wanted to actually make progress in this, all they'd have to do is reach out to Europe and go, we're going to go to the UN with a we want security guarantees against invasion, against us never having nuclear power. And we're just going to do that. We're going to agree with the rest of the world that nukes are a murderous weapon we don't want any interest in. We're going to hold to the jihad that our original Ayatollah had against allegedly doing it. Now, again, that was cover and bullshit, but whatever. Let's just take them at their word. But if you were on their side and you're busy putting out these fucking Lego videos, one of the things you could do is just go to the UN and go, look, we can't talk to the United States, but we're going to sign a deal with all of Europe because we trust them as partners. We'll work with them. And that would put Trump and everybody around him on their heels, and it would salvage the circumstance, make him the villain, and keep him from that win that he thinks he's magically going to have. It just, well,
the mistake there is thinking that they are not so. I mean, if they were rational human beings, they could do that. But,
sure. That's like the Trump thing about like during COVID, if he'd adjust, he'd have been a different fucking person because Trump, as he is, can only do certain things. He's a wind-up toy, and arguably so are they. That's the circumstance I think humanity we found ourselves in this situation. Ask the Slovak people about Genghis Khan and understand that there's been a lot of periods in life where devastating hordes of violence have cascaded across a group of people, not because the people that were actually carrying it out wanted it, but the people that told them to said, you gotta, or you're gonna, if you try to come home without a head, you're dead. And
it fascinates me how we fall for that across history. The entire history of man is replete with those who are willing to sell their soul out of fear or by the mistaken belief, like the people in this current administration in the United States believe that they can gain something personal out of it. It's fascinating and frightening. And if there are actually aliens that are above, more advanced than us in the cosmos, I would sit back in my spaceship and look at us and go, let's just wait till they're done killing each other. Then we got a whole planet we can take over because we're horrible.
Well, I have a video. I'm going to obviously cover the Kristen Welker video this afternoon, but Tucker Carlson has a video out called "Everything is Terrible." You're right. Everything is terrible. Something along those lines. It's let me see if I can find the title. It's hilarious. It's this nihilistic horror. Everything is getting worse. That's what and this is why. Like, it's so fucking clickbaity bullshit.
Thank you, Tucker.
Yeah. Thanks for letting us know, you fucking tit. But the issue
with a big bad areola.
Oh my God. It's so gross. It's so awful. But one of the issues they have is that no, it's not. That's the thing. If it was all getting worse at once, people would just be in the streets. Welcome to the French Revolution. Like, everything would happen again. The problem is that it isn't so cut and dry. And there's a lot of gray areas. And the power of the U.S. military and the economy allows Trump to get away with a lot of this shit. It's not that he can't or that it will destroy the system or that the country's going to fall. It will be resilient and heal. And he knows it. So he's taking advantage of it to enrich himself. Yeah. Like, he wishes it would collapse. Like, he'll fuck off like Peter Thiel to Argentina. Right? He didn't care, but he knows it's not going to. That's why they're all buying the dip. They're looking at this Iran war. Most of the people around him, like Bessent and all these guys, they're just buying the fucking dip. And anytime they want a new one, they just make one.
Yep. Yeah, without a doubt. You nailed it.
Dude, I appreciate you so much. I can't wait to see you again in person. I am the 26th, I believe it is, which is a Friday. I'm back at Flappers in LA if you're around in the area. On the 16th, I'm at the Ultimate Jam Night a week from tomorrow. Yeah, at the Ultimate Jam Night. We're going to actually have a baby grand on stage. We're celebrating piano songs. So I think I'm going to get to do Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone by Cinderella by hook or by crook. Thank you.
Yeah.
And in the original Tom Kiefer voice.
Where are you doing that? It's
at the Whiskey.
At the Whiskey.
Yeah.
One of my favorite places.
It's so lovely. And then, of course, this Friday, San Jose, Nerd Halen in California. So, and then Denver, Colorado on the 31st. We're stacking dates. We're getting there. We're building some stuff up. So we're gonna get, I want to get to the DC area just so I can do stand up and a Nerd Halen show and hang and maybe have somebody sneak me into the fucking press briefing.
Oh, I might be able to do that if they'll let me in.
I just want to. If I may, hello, Hal Sparks, beloved comedian and Disney dad. Real quick, so I'm listening to what your answer was for, and my complete response was,
this is some bullshit.
Yeah. So, anyways, thank you so much, Brian. We'll see you again very soon, brother.
Always a pleasure, my rock and roll brother.
That's absolutely right. Hold on. I got to put this on as well. Ladies and gentlemen, come on.
What are you doing?
It's like University of Illinois.
There you go.
Risky business. Anyways. Okay. Bless you, my brother. I will see you again very soon. All right.
Later.
Cheers. There he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Karam, the awesome, the ever wonderful, and the closest thing I have to an insider in the DC establishment system thing of people who are there and work with molecular structures and things of that nature. Let's see. Should I do one little? Yeah. How about this guy?
Time for a shameless plug. Oh yeah, it's shameless plug time.
That's right. So coming up this weekend, Friday in San Jose. Where's my pointer? That get you swine. I've broken my pointing stick. I've got nothing to point with now. There we go. We turn this on and turn this on. Get it back here. There you go. And then turn this off and turn this one back on. There you go. Turn this back. Go there. There we go. That's what I was trying to do. All right. So shameless plug. Nerd Halen this weekend at Friday night, 8 o'clock. The Ritz, San Jose. The Mighty Nerd Halen featuring Hal Sparks. See that? That's me being a featured person. That is also me doing the, if you're familiar with the Van Halen hand sign that, like the double kind of I love you horns that Hagar used to do. We do our own variation of it, obviously nerd ready. So there you go. And so work on that. Stretch your hands. It's important. Are we rating anybody after the show? Just let me know. Also, major news. Paxton's lawyer endorses James Tallarico. Oh, it's so good. See? Patreon.com/Hal Sparks. Great way to support the show. And of course, hold on. The Venmo thingy, where'd it go? Where are you, you silly little thing? There you go. Dink. Yay, there it is. So the Venmo up there or down here, whatever, if you're watching the show and you want to buy me a cup of coffee, support the show, that's the way to do it. Just take a picture of that with your phone. And if you use Venmo, you can do it that way. That's lovely. And all right, that's all. That's all the shameless plugging I'm going to do. That sounded dirty. And I'll see you guys this afternoon. Oh, we're rating Cliff. Excellent. So we're going to send you guys over to Cliff Schechter. Tell him I said hi. Send some love from the Sparklers. Hit the like, share the show. Great show this morning. Thank you, Andrea, for setting up both of those interviews. Greatly appreciated. Always good. Yeah. Meanwhile, if I can't wait. I can't wait for the Iran war to be over so we can get back to the Epstein stuff.
We ain't saying nothing. Black bar over my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't catch this. If it looks too wild on the axis, right click, boom. Redact this. Blood that face, can't fact check the madness. Throwing out page from the bad habits atlas. If the story get messy in the ad libs, highlight, right click, boom. Redact this. I was young, I was dumb, I was scrolling. Type way too much, hit send, heart swollen. Now I keep receipts like a lawyer with a folder. But anything risky, get hit with the toner. Whole group chat, got tails, I ain't claim. If my name pop up, that's a typo, blame. Who's that in the pic, man, that ain't go strange. That's a random stranger with a very close face. Understanding my friends, I plead don't recall. If they ask for the tape, it's a missing file. If they pull up the clip, that's deep fake style. If they show me the proof, I just smile. Like redact this. Black bar over my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't catch this. If it looks too wild on the axis, highlight, right click, boom. Redact this. Redact this. Blur that face, can't fact check the madness. Torn out page from the bad habits atlas. If the story get messy in the ad-libs, highlight, right click, boom, yeah. If it hit too close, that's a rumor I heard. If the dateline match, that's a clerical error. If the outfit match, that's a popular shirt. If the tattoo match, that's a stock photo search. I'm allergic to question, carving the light. I just edit the ending, soften the bite. Take the worst 3 parts of the night, then slice like fun was had and we were not. Every X got a chapter I seal. Every text got a gap in the reel. I ain't lying, I'm curating the reveal. Just trimming little bits of the raw, real deal. If you saw, you didn't. If you know, you didn't. If you talk, I'm clipping. If they ask, we glitching. Swipe that name out, crop that frame out. If it made me look foul, delete then fade out. Redacted. Black ball over my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't catch this. If it looks too wild on the axis, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. Redact this. Blur that face, can't fact check the madness. Torn out page from the bad habits atlas. If the story get messy in the ad